Augustus, or Octavian, was the founder and first emperor of Rome, ruling from 27 BC. He rose to power after defeating his rival Marcus Antonius and Cleopatra in the final civil war of the Roman Republic. After his victory at the Battle of Actium, Antonius and Cleopatra retreated to Alexandria and later took their own lives. Augustus took control of Egypt as his personal possession. By the end of his reign, Augustus had conquered modern Spain, Portugal, Switzerland, Bavaria, Austria, Slovenia, Pannonia, North Africa, and Judea. But by 14 AD, his health had been declining for months. On August 19th, he died aged 75 while staying at his villa in Nola, likely of natural causes, though rumors suggest that his wife, Livia, gave him poisoned figs to ensure her son Tiberius would succeed him. Tiberius's first years in power were prosperous and peaceful for Roman citizens, but after his son Drusus died under mysterious circumstances, he ruled from Capri, growing paranoid and ordering the execution of suspected conspirators. Then his serious heart problems started. On March 17th, 37 AD, he appeared to stop breathing and was believed dead, but reports claim he briefly regained consciousness. Ancient sources accused the Praetorian prefect Macro, possibly acting to secure Caligula's succession, of smothering him with his bedclothes. Other rumors claimed he was poisoned or starved. Modern historians say he most likely died of a heart attack. After his death, the crowds reportedly shouted, "To the Tiber with Tiberius," a phrase used for condemned criminals, but his body was cremated. In his will, Tiberius named Caligula and his grandson Gemellus as joint heirs, but Caligula quickly voided the will and took sole power. Caligula was initially seen as generous and concerned with public welfare. He built theaters, roads, ports, and aqueducts. He also expanded Roman control by annexing Mauritania. By 37 AD, Caligula fell seriously ill, but recovered. After this, he's portrayed as increasingly cruel, crazy, and tyrannical, humiliating the Senate and demanding worship as a living god. But many historians argue this is an exaggeration by hostile sources. On January 24th, 41 AD, Caligula was ambushed by members of the Praetorian Guard, led by Cassius Chaerea, beneath his palace while attending a sports event. Cassius allegedly sought revenge against Caligula for mocking his high-pitched voice. He struck first, and 30 more stabs followed. Caligula's body was dumped into a shallow grave on the Palatine Hill in Rome. The conspirators then murdered Caligula's wife and their young daughter, but failed to find his uncle Claudius, who was soon proclaimed emperor. Today's video is sponsored by World of Warships, a tactical multiplayer naval combat game that's been evolving for over 10 years. It features over 850 historically inspired ships from 13 nations, command destroyers, cruisers, battleships, aircraft carriers, or submarines in strategic team battles across huge maps with dynamic weather. What I like is how it really makes you feel like the captain of a real warship, even letting you relive historic moments like D-Day. This March, they launched an event fans have been asking for. Approved by the community, this collaboration brings naval action together with the music of metal legend Sabaton. Discover the Legend of Sabaton collection, with every element telling the story and fun facts about your favorite Swedish metal band and its members. Complete personal challenges in-game to progress through the Sabaton collection, and earn a range of thematic rewards, including the Crowned in Smoke and Flame Yamato skin, a Joachim Brodin commander with a unique voiceover, and Metal Flames camouflage for your fleet. There's also a brand new Sabaton music video, Yamato. Check it out. Join through my link, grab your bonus code, and start your Sabaton collection today. The game is free to play. Claudius lived to 64 despite poor health, gluttony, and overwork. His reign was efficient. He expanded the imperial civil service and conquered Britain. He died on October 13th, 54 AD, while being entertained by comic actors. Ancient historians widely claimed he was murdered by poison by his last wife, Agrippina. She had a clear motive, as she wanted the throne for her son Nero instead of Claudius's other son from another woman, Britannicus. Agrippina apparently shared a plate of mushrooms with him, and one mushroom was poisoned. Some modern historians question this story, pointing to Claudius's long-standing health problems, unhealthy lifestyle, and serious illness. They point to a stroke. After his death, his adopted son and grandnephew Nero took over. Nero is known for arranging the murder of his mother, Agrippina, his wife Claudia Octavia, and stepbrother Britannicus. His position collapsed after Senator Vindex rebelled against his tax policies, which led the Senate to declare Nero a public enemy and sentence him to death. Nero fled Rome. He planned to escape to eastern provinces, but abandoned the plan when his officers refused to follow him. He returned to his palace, but the Praetorian Guard was gone, and no one answered his calls for help. With 4 loyal men, he took refuge in a villa outside Rome, where he ordered a grave to be dug for him. But he wanted a slave to take his own life first, so he could find courage to do the same. The slave refused. As horsemen approached to arrest him, he finally did it. Accounts differ on whether he stabbed himself in the throat or forced his secretary, Epaphroditus, to do it. Nero died on June 9th, 68 AD at the age of 30. Vespasian became emperor in 69 AD and founded the Flavian dynasty, which ruled Rome for the next 27 years. His reign restored stability after civil war through financial reform, tighter control of the empire, and major building projects like the Colosseum. But in 79 AD, he suddenly fell ill and developed severe diarrhea. As his condition worsened, he joked, "An emperor ought to die standing," and tried to rise from his bed. He then had such a strong diarrhea attack that he collapsed and died in the arms of those assisting him on June 23rd, aged 69. He was succeeded by his son Titus. Titus ruled briefly, but became popular for his generosity and response to the eruption of Mount Vesuvius and a devastating fire in Rome. He also opened the Colosseum and a public bathhouse, holding grand games to celebrate their completion. He then planned to travel, but suddenly fell ill. Titus died from a fever on September 13th, 81 AD, reportedly in the same farmhouse where his father had died. His last words were, "I have made but one mistake." Rumor has it that his brother Domitianus poisoned him with a sea slug. Ancient Roman historians suggest Domitianus abandoned Titus while he was dying, and the mistake referred to Titus not acting sooner against his brother's ambitions, who succeeded him. Domitianus was popular with the army and people. He strengthened the economy, reinforced the empire's borders, led major campaigns in Britain and Dacia, and launched extensive rebuilding projects across Rome. But this didn't prevent him from having enemies. Domitianus was highly paranoid about assassination and believed prophecies that predicted his death around midday. On September 18th, 96 AD, he repeatedly asked a servant for the time. The servant, who was part of a conspiracy, falsely told him it was already late in the afternoon, which made him relax and sign decrees at his desk. Servant Stephanus, who had been feigning an injured arm and was hiding a dagger under a bandage, approached the emperor. Claiming he had uncovered a plot, Stephanus was granted access and stabbed Domitianus in the groin. Domitianus fought back and killed Stephanus, but other conspirators rushed in and stabbed him repeatedly. He bled to death at the age of 44. He was succeeded the same day by his advisor Nerva. Emperor Nerva promised to restore freedoms that had been restricted under Domitianus and was seen as a wise and moderate ruler, but his short reign was troubled by financial strain and a lack of authority over the army. In 97 AD, a revolt by the Praetorian Guard exposed his weakness and effectively forced him to adopt an heir to secure stability. Nerva fell ill with a fever and died of natural causes, likely a stroke, on January 27, 98 AD, while recovering at his villa. His most important achievement was ensuring a peaceful transfer of power by choosing Trajan as his successor. Trajan was highly respected for his generosity and military success. Under his rule, the Roman Empire expanded to its greatest size and power. But by 117 AD, Trajan fell ill and began his journey back to Italy. His condition declined, weakened by years of intense campaigning. In August, he suddenly died of a stroke at the age of 63. Some say Trajan himself named Hadrian as successor, others say his wife, Pompeia, made that happen. Hadrian quickly reversed Trajan's expansionism. Mesopotamia and Assyria were returned to the Parthians, and Armenia was allowed its own king. He also ordered the execution of 4 senior senators, which earned him disapproval. Hadrian instead focused on unifying the empire while building Hadrian's Wall and the Temple of Venus and Roma. Hadrian's final years were marked by chronic illness, and he allegedly tried to hasten his death through self-starvation. He died in July 138 AD at his villa in Baiae, aged 62, likely from heart failure. Antoninus Pius was adopted by Hadrian shortly before his death and succeeded him. His reign was one of the most peaceful periods, except for one successful campaign in Scotland that led to the construction of the Antonine Wall. He proved to be an efficient administrator, strengthening the treasury, expanding access to clean drinking water, and improving the rights of freed slaves. But by age 70, he struggled to stand without support and relied on dry bread to stay alert. 2 days before his death, he was staying at his estate near Rome. Unfortunately for him, his love for cheese was his undoing. After eating a large amount of Alpine cheese at dinner, he became violently ill and developed a fever. 3 days later, Antonius summoned his friends, formally entrusted the empire to Marcus Aurelius, then lay down and died. Marcus Aurelius ruled during a period of constant warfare. In the east, they fought the Parthian Empire. In the north, Germanic and Sarmatian tribes during the Marcomannic Wars. Marcus Aurelius died on March 17, 180 AD, at the age of 58, while staying in his military quarters after a long illness, most likely caused by the Antonine Plague, often identified as smallpox, which had devastated the Roman Empire. He likely got it while campaigning along the northern frontier near modern-day Vienna. Marcus was succeeded by his son Commodus. Commodus became emperor at just 18 in the middle of an ongoing war, but he ignored his advisors and ruled according to personal whims. He wanted to return to Rome and enjoy a luxurious lifestyle, so he quickly ordered his generals to negotiate peace, ending the Marcomannic Wars. Commodus became increasingly autocratic and developed a personality cult, presenting himself as a living god. His behavior alienated much of the elite and fueled resentment within his own family. His sister Lucilla, angered by her loss of status after Commodus' wife became empress, joined a plot against him. 2 men alleged to have been her lovers attempted to assassinate Commodus at a theater, but the attack failed. Lucilla and others involved were executed. By 192 AD, Commodus had grown unstable. He spent his mornings killing animals and his afternoons fighting as a gladiator, for some reason always winning. When his mistress Marcia discovered a list of intended executions that included herself, she plotted. On December 31st, 192 AD, Marcia poisoned Commodus' food, but he puked it out. The conspirators then sent his wrestling partner, Narcissus, who strangled him in his bath. When it was over, the Senate declared Commodus a public enemy and destroyed his statues. Septimius Severus became emperor in 193 AD, following the assassination of Pertinax and the brief, chaotic rule of Didius Julianus. His rule was marked by many wars. In 208 AD, he led a campaign in Britain against the Caledonians, but he suddenly fell ill and suffered from gout with extreme pain and swellings. This possibly led to kidney or heart failure. He died in February 211 AD in York, Britain, while still on campaign. Before dying, he reportedly ordered his own cremation. He left the empire to his arguing sons Caracalla and Geta. Caracalla first co-ruled with his brother Geta, but soon had him and his supporters killed by the Praetorian Guard. His reign was marked by domestic unrest and invasions by Germanic tribes, though he issued an edict that granted Roman citizenship to all free men in the empire. Caracalla also traveled to Alexandria, where he ordered a brutal massacre of civilians because they apparently mocked him. In 217, at the age of 29, while based in Edessa, he felt like attacking Parthia while traveling to a temple of the moon god Sin. On April 8th, while peeing, he was stabbed by his soldier Martialis, who was mad over being denied a centurion promotion. A bodyguard killed Martialis, but 2 Praetorian tribunes completed the assassination, likely set up by the prefect Macrinus, who wanted to seize power. 3 days later, Macrinus declared himself emperor. Elagabalus became emperor at the age of 14 after his grandmother Julia Maesa led an army revolt against Caracalla's successor Macrinus. His reign was infamous for controversies and alleged excesses. Ancient sources, likely exaggerated, describe him marrying several women, publicly taking a male lover as a spouse, wearing women's clothing and makeup, prostituting himself, and promising rewards to doctors who could give him female genitalia. He apparently also disrupted Senate meetings by showing his wiener and drove a chariot pulled by naked women. All that, for some reason, alienated the Praetorian Guard, the Senate, and the public. His grandmother saw that his support waned, so she moved to replace him with his cousin and adopted son Alexander Severus, who was more popular. Elagabalus attempted multiple assassinations against Alexander, but failed. On March 13, 222, a confrontation with the Praetorian Guard exposed his unpopularity. Elagabalus hid in a chest, but was discovered and killed along with his mother at the age of 18. They were decapitated, their bodies stripped and dragged through the city, and Elagabalus's body was thrown into the Tiber. His associates were also executed. Alexander Severus became emperor at the age of 13, succeeding his slain cousin. His 13-year reign was prosperous during peacetime. However, by then Rome had gone to war with almost everyone. Alexander successfully contained the Sassanids, but in dealing with the Germanic tribes, relied on diplomacy and bribery, which much of the Roman army didn't like. In March 235 near Mainz, Alexander consulted with his insubordinate generals, who compared him to his cousin Elagabalus. When a Germanic servant entered the tent and called for his assassination, many of Alexander's own soldiers joined in. Despite bodyguards, Alexander and his mother were murdered. Maximinus Thrax was a senior legion commander and proclaimed emperor by the army after the assassination of Severus Alexander. His rise sparked opposition from the Senate, and in 238 AD a revolt led to the successive proclamation of several rival emperors. Maximinus marched on Rome to suppress the revolt, but the city of Aquileia refused him entry. He chose to besiege the city, but his troops starved and grew discontent. In May or June 238, his own soldiers assassinated him along with his son and ministers. He never even entered Rome during his reign. Pupienus and Balbinus assumed co-emperorship, but soon were murdered by the Praetorian Guard, leaving Gordian III as the successor. Gordian III became emperor at 13, so real power was largely in the hands of Rome's aristocratic families and the Senate. During his reign, Rome faced increasing pressure from its enemies. In response to an invasion by the Sasanians under Shapur I, Gordian launched a campaign into Mesopotamia. He died around the age of 19 on February 11, 244, most likely during the Battle of Mysice. His exact fate is unclear. Persian sources claim he fell in a major Roman defeat near modern Iraq, while Roman accounts say his troops proclaimed Philip the Arab emperor, and that Gordian either died in battle, was murdered by his own soldiers, or fell from his horse. Philip the Arab quickly secured peace with the Sasanian Empire after Gordian was gone. His reign was relatively stable at first, but over time unrest spread with multiple foreign invasions and rebellions by dissatisfied legions. But the Senate backed him and encouraged him to send Senator Decius to restore order. Decius crushed the rebellions, but his own troops soon proclaimed him emperor. Philip's empire was falling apart. When his position weakened further due to financial troubles and grain shortage, Decius marched on Rome. The two armies met near Verona. Decius won decisively, and Philip was killed in September 249, either in battle or by his own soldiers seeking favor with the new ruler. Philip's young son and heir was also killed. Decius sought to restore Roman strength through traditional religion and authority. He ordered public sacrifices to the Roman gods, which led to the persecution of Christians. In his final year, he ruled jointly with his son Herennius Etruscus. Decius spent much of his rule fighting the Goths, who became Rome's deadliest enemy and ravaged their territory. In June 251, Roman forces confronted them at the Battle of Abritus in what is now northeastern Bulgaria. Early in the battle, Decius' son was killed by an arrow. The Roman army then became trapped in the marshes and was destroyed. Decius fell on the same battlefield. Valerian was proclaimed emperor in 253 AD by soldiers during a period of severe instability and appointed his son Gallienus as co-emperor. They divided responsibilities, with Gallienus handling the Western Empire while Valerian led operations against the Persians. Valerian advanced to Edessa, where a plague devastated his army and left it weakened. In June 260, he was decisively defeated by King Shapur I at the Battle of Edessa and taken prisoner. Valerian spent the rest of his life as a slave, used as a footstool when Shapur mounted his horse. His death remains uncertain. Christian sources claim he was forced to swallow molten gold, then flayed alive, and his skin displaced as a trophy. Other accounts suggest he was settled in Persia and treated well, eventually released and died of natural causes. His son Gallienus continued his rule alone. Gallienus faced an impossible situation after his father's death. He faced constant invasions, rebellions, and civil war across the empire. Morale was low, and many soldiers began to question whether Roman military superiority was merely a myth. Although he won several victories against usurpers and Germanic tribes, he was unable to prevent the breakaway of the Gallic Empire in the west. In 268 AD, General Aurelius declared himself emperor in Milan. Gallienus defeated him in battle and besieged the city. During the siege, a conspiracy formed among his officers. Cecropius, commander of the Dalmatian troops, falsely reported that Aurelius's forces were attempting to escape. Gallienus rushed out of his tent without his bodyguard and was stabbed to death by him. On hearing the news, the Senate ordered the execution of his family and supporters. Aurelian became emperor in 270 AD and led a remarkable recovery of the Roman Empire. Through a series of big military victories, he defeated the Alemanni, Goths, Vandals, Teuthangi, Sarmatians, and Carpi. He even reconquered the Palmyrene and the Gallic Empire, fully reuniting Rome and earning the title Restorer of the World. He also strengthened Rome's defenses by building the Aurelian Walls. In 275 AD, Aurelian set out on a new campaign against the Sassanid Empire, but never reached Persia. While stationed in Thrace, he was assassinated. A secretary named Eros, afraid of punishment for a minor lie, forged a document listing senior officers supposedly marked for execution. Believing their lives were in danger, several high-ranking members of the Praetorian Guard stabbed Aurelian to death. The truth came out fast. Eros was quickly captured and executed, but the army was overwhelmed with grief and remorse. Aurelian's murder was such a shock that neither the army nor the Senate knew how to react afterwards. Diocletian was proclaimed emperor in 284 AD after the deaths of Carus and Numerian during a Persian campaign. His reign brought stability after decades of chaos. To manage the vast empire, he divided power, appointing Maximinus as co-emperor. He expanded this system by naming Galerius and Constantius I as junior emperors. Now, 4 rulers governed separate regions of the empire. Diocletian led successful campaigns against the Sarmatians, Carpi, Alemanni, Egyptian rebels, and Persians, while also building the most bureaucratic government Rome had ever seen. After 20 years of rule, exhausted and ill, he voluntarily retired to his palace at Split to tend his gardens. From retirement, he watched his empire collapse under the power struggles of his successors. Diocletian died on December 3rd, 312 AD, in his palace. Many suggest from deep depression and illness after seeing the downfall of his system and the forced suicide of his co-emperor Maximinus. Constantine the Great was named emperor in 306 AD by his father's troops at York, after Constantius I died during a campaign in Britain. He was the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity and played a decisive role in making it the dominant religion. Constantine also founded Constantinople as a new imperial capital. But he also ordered the execution of his eldest son, Crispus, who was poisoned, and his wife Fausta, who was fried in an overheated bath. The reason remains unclear. In his final years, Constantine planned a campaign against Persia, but in the spring of 337 he fell ill. He died later that year, likely from a severe fever or cancer. Julian the Apostate was a nephew of Constantine the Great, and one of the few members of the imperial family to survive the purges and civil wars under his cousin Constantius II. He was initially successful and defeated Germanic raids. In 360, his soldiers proclaimed him emperor at Lutetia, triggering a civil war, but the conflict ended before battle when Constantius II died and named Julian his successor to avoid further bloodshed. Julian was the last non-Christian ruler of the Roman Empire and wanted to restore traditional Roman values and religion to prevent further decline. Later, he launched an ambitious campaign against the Sasanian Empire. It started well, but during the Battle of Samara in 363 AD, Julian was mortally wounded by a spear or javelin and died from blood loss. Theodosius I became emperor of the eastern provinces in 379, facing ravaging Goths and an army weakened after the crushing defeat at Adrianople. The Western Emperor Gratianus gave him full control over the Gothic War, which he managed to end in 381. Later, Theodosius marched west to defeat troublemaker Magnus Maximus at the Battle of Poetovio, restoring Valentinian II. He then defeated the usurper Eugenius at the Battle of the Frigidus River, becoming sole ruler of the Roman Empire. Theodosius died in 395 in Milan at age 48 from a severe illness with swelling, likely dropsy. Before his death, he divided the empire between his sons Honorius and Arcadius, marking the permanent division of the Roman Empire into western and eastern halves. Romulus Augustulus was placed on the Western Roman throne as a minor by his father Orestes. In 475 AD, after just 10 months, the barbarian general Odovacar defeated and killed Orestes, deposed Romulus, and became the first king of Italy, making Romulus the last Western Roman emperor and marking the end of the Western Roman Empire. Romulus was spared and allowed to retire to a villa in Campania with a generous annual pension. He lived out his life there and died sometime around 507. Don't forget to download World of Warships for free now via my link in the description. See you in battle.